Next up, we have a personal story from Mary Reed and her daughter Emma McMahon. We are so grateful for them sharing their time with us today. They're going to tell in tandem, which is a kind of a tricky thing. And as you can tell, they're also telling from different rooms on other sides of the country. So with that, Emma and Mary, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Once upon a time, on a beautiful January day, an average mom took her above average daughter to meet her daughter's hero. You see, the girl's hero was an elected official from the girl's own hometown. This elected official was a rising star in Congress, and this young woman loved policy just like her hero. They shared a birthday, and this girl was so happy. You see, I am that mom, but this is no fairy tale. That day, we were so excited to be meeting Gabby. We couldn't stop talking to the people standing outside of the grocery store. Emma was trying to work on her college applications, and with the future dancing in her eyes, I could see the young woman she was growing into. After meeting the girl's hero, we had planned to leave from there and go to a CPR class nearby. Our whole family was excited to meet Gabby and to go to the CPR class. We were all standing in line together.
I so didn't want to be there. My mom had dragged me out of the house to get a picture with Gabby Giffords. I'd been too shy to get one the summer I had been a congressional page in DC. While we were standing in line, my mom was talking to everyone. As always, I was trying to focus on my college applications and failing miserably. I couldn't articulate my wishes and hopes for the future. I had just managed to pluck a coherent idea out of my stream of consciousness when I heard something. Were some kids setting off fireworks?
What was that? Was that fireworks? I smelled gunpowder. Ouch! My body moved without my knowledge or consent. I picked my daughter up and I threw her against the grocery store wall and I covered her with my body. Gunfire. Screams. Footsteps. A man in a hoodie was running, shooting people standing in line. He stood behind me and hesitated. Seeing Emma, he tried to shoot her through me. He missed her, but shot me in the arm again. Still standing behind me, he hesitates again, and I thought, little man, you better have the cojones to look me in the eye if you're going to shoot me again. Turning my head around, we locked eyes. He dropped the gun from my head to my back, and he shot me for a third time.
I stood up from a crouch I didn't remember getting into. And suddenly, I heard my kindergarten teacher's voice in my head. I whipped out my phone and called 911. While the phone was ringing, I walked away, stepping over the gunman. At first, I got a busy signal. I called back and got a dispatcher. She told me that help was on the way. Walking back to my mom, I saw that people had sprung into action. The grocery store butchers had brought out rags for the injured. Doctors and nurses who were shopping in the grocery store dropped everything to attend to the dying.
When he shot me in the back, the bullet had lodged in my backbone. With a completely numb leg, I sat down hard, releasing Emma. Coming back from the 911 call, she said, "Mom, you threw me really hard against that wall. I think you bruised my hip." Then she looked at me. She really looked at me, and she saw that I had been shot in both arms and in the back, and I was bleeding everywhere. "Oh my God, Mom," she said, and grabbed rags. She sat holding those rags on my arms while her younger brother, Owen, sat next to her, picking out bloody debris from his sister's long golden hair.
The 6 minutes it took for the sheriff to arrive felt like hours. I stood, holding rags to my mom's back, and wrote down a list of her medications. Finally, an ambulance for my mom arrived. As the EMTs loaded her into the ambulance, I looked her into the eye and made her promise not to die. Then, suddenly, I was alone, an adult, responsible not just for myself, but for my little brother as well.
At the hospital, they determined that the bullet had not severed my spine, but instead it had insulted my sciatic nerve, meaning the nerve had been stunned but not destroyed. So I was released the next day. At home, I skipped the denial stage in processing grief and went straight to anger, where I wallowed for a while. You see, I was incapable of caring for anything, not myself, not my family, not my house, not my dogs, my cats, really nothing. Me, the mom, I could not do my mom things. And instead, I needed a huge amount of care to recover from my injuries. So Emma stepped up and stepped in. Quietly and surely, she kept everything going. Appointments, schedules, meals, laundry, carpools, everything.
The shooting happened on a Saturday, and by Monday, I was back in school. My whole life had been turned so upside down that I was shocked that my high school looked the same that Monday morning, that the kids in the hall were still making the same jokes and roughhousing as if nothing had changed. My friends didn't know how to react. They were so careful not to mention the shooting and fell silent when I walked into a room. In an effort to protect me, they started keeping painful but important things from me: college rejections, breakups, car accidents. They were treating me like a porcelain doll that they were afraid was going to break, when I felt stronger than ever. I had grown up that weekend, but my life was still that of a teenager's, and like an old pair of shoes I'd grown out of, my life at school felt wrong. It chafed. It was too constrained. At home, there were endless responsibilities: doctor's appointments to make, wounds to clean, journalists to call, my little brother's soccer practice to drive him to, and a seemingly never-ending meal train to coordinate. Our community really rallied around us, even strangers wanting to ease our pain in whatever small way they could, but mainly through food. Honestly, I have never seen so much gluten-free lasagna in my life. But more than the lasagna, they wanted to comfort us with company, to reassure themselves and us that we were fine and that we would be able to heal together.
Emma graduated high school that spring, and I began physical therapy. For the first couple of years after the shooting, I was hyper-focused on justice, attending all parts of the trial and sentencing, practically living in the courtroom or in the U.S. Attorney's office. Now, I know that the active support of the victims' advocates assigned to me was critical to my healing. So I trained to be a victim's advocate, to help other victims of violence within my county. Serving other people helped with my long journey back. And then I also decided to use my voice, my story, to improve gun laws. That was also healing. Before the shooting, I thought I knew how gun laws worked. I was a gun owner. But now I can clearly see the problems with our gun laws, and I've become an evangelist for common sense changes in our gun laws, to speak out about holes in our systems and about my experience with gun violence, because I don't want one more family to be shattered by gun violence.
Healing wasn't easy. After months of keeping everything under control, I literally ran away. I took a gap year in Germany, where the shooting felt very far away. But no matter how far I ran, I could never get away from the memories and impact of the shooting. For years, I was angry about that. Angry that the shooting had taken away my childhood, removed my sense of safety in the world, put me onto a different path without my consent. And I fully rejected any parts of me that I feel like had been changed because of the shooting. I rarely talked about it with any of my friends or classmates. But slowly, painfully, and with lots of support from my family, and especially my mom, that anger faded away. After my gap year, I went to college on the East Coast, and I haven't lived in Arizona for the nearly 10 years since the shooting. But my love of my home has never faded. I've spent my life combining my love of the desert with a strong sense of wanting to make the world a better place, which is how I ended up, as I am today, working in climate change policy.
I believe that I have been granted bonus years for my life. I did nothing to earn those years. More deserving people should have had them, but I was given them. To honor the people that were taken that dreadful day, I've dedicated these bonus years to service to others, service to other survivors of gun violence, service to my community, making the world a better place, a safer place for my children and for everyone's children. That's my goal. Have you noticed how many survivors respond the same way? We look for ways to prevent the horror that happened to us from happening to anyone else. We know that horror, and we believe that no one else should experience it. We work to make the world a better place. We do this because it helps us heal and not to be afraid. But when people ask me what they should do, I tell them simply to be kind, no matter what. You never know what people are going through. You just don't. I am not the picture that people have in their mind of a gunshot victim. When I was a victim's advocate for Pima County, I would go to active crime scenes. What I learned was that victims of violence have lost two things: safety and control. But by being kind, you give those back to the people you are kind to. You grant them moments of grace. And you give people that witness your kindness, you give them hope. So when I'm suffering with the pain from the bullet that remains lodged in my spine, when I am shaking from hearing about another shooting, when I'm upset with the daily, I am so grateful for kindness. Those people who are kind to me are my healers. They are my community, and I am so grateful to them.
Although I would never say that I'm grateful for it, today I am able to accept the role the shooting had in making me the person that I am. It grew my empathy muscle. I now recognize that any day could be the worst day of someone's life. Anything can happen to anyone. Today, I have more tolerance for my friends' banal comments. I have more patience for everyday aggravation, being caught in traffic, slow service at a restaurant, breaking my favorite coffee mug. The shooting gave me perspective. I now understand that tragedies bring out people's true colors, and that most often their true selves are very deeply kind. When my world was blown apart, my community in Tucson helped me to hold it together with their kindness. That kindness was imprinted on my heart, and I carry that legacy with me no matter where I go. In this time of great uncertainty, kindness, more than ever, has become a lifeline. Even though we can't be together physically, each day we have the opportunity to practice kindness. That is what I learned from the shooting.
Thank you.
Oh gosh, Mary, Emma, thank you both so much. I'm so moved. I was tearing up. I'm sure you can tell. But I do want to say, Emma and Mary, both of you, your takeaways, your big ideas at the end of how you access resiliency after this tragedy, that Mary, you go out of your way to serve others and offer them the comfort and security you didn't have. Emma, your increased patience with your friends. I was like very touched. Obviously, it would be so easy for you to be like, do you know how bad life can be? But instead, you're like, life can be bad in all kinds of ways. I will be nice to you because that's what matters. I cannot think of a more valuable lesson to be taking into ourselves right now. So thank you both so much for your stories and your hearts and for your time.
Thank you, Megan.